The First Million Words, Episode 0, Prologue. Welcome to the very first episode of the First Million Podcast. Oh, great.
Wow, is that twice?
Haven't even started. This is our second attempt at recording this, too. Oh, boy.
Wow.
Welcome to the very first episode of the First Million Words Podcast. I'm going to have to write that down somewhere. My name is Ben.
Oh, and I'm Guillermo.
Nice, we're off to a great start. So, tonight's episode is basically just us introducing ourselves and giving you a little bit of an idea of how the show is going to go. It'll go a lot smoother than it will go tonight, I promise you that, I guess.
No. This is the first million empty promises? No?
Yes.
It's all right.
Oh my gosh, I haven't been recording this whole time. No, I'm kidding. We're good. I at least pushed the record button. So, anyway.
That works.
Yeah, it works. So my name is Ben, and I like to write. That sounds like a cheer. Hang on. Let me rephrase that. I like to write. My name is Ben. And we figured Guillermo and I, we're both rookies. We don't have anything like published. We've never, and at this point that we're speaking, neither of us have actually finished a book.
Finished writing a book. I've finished off a book or two.
Okay. We have read a few books, by the way. But we both are, rookie, budding, wannabe, aspiring writers. And we thought it would be great if we could, bug professionally published authors to give us their advice on the craft of writing. And we could talk shop with them. Unfortunately, it's kind of frowned upon to do that just unbidden. Like if you just send them an email or stalk them at their house and, rap on their window at midnight and yell, "Hey, can you tell me how to do character development? And I need a cool magic system. Can you help me with that?"
With that doesn't work as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Going to their book signings and refusing to leave until they give you said information, also frowned upon.
Yes,
oddly enough.
Sadly. So what we decided to do is we'll just start a podcast, and that at least gives us an excuse to contact these authors and ask them for help and advice. And we told them that people would listen to the show, so it's up to you guys, if you're listening to this, to keep on listening every week. And we'll try to do our best to keep having an author come on the show every week. And how we've decided to do it, and this is just how we've decided now. It might change, it might not, who knows. But every month we're going to focus on a different author, and we're going to start off with just a quick kind of a long format of interviewing the author so you can get to know them, see their cred, and followed by 3 interviews that are going to be a little shorter on specific writing topics. And we've already recorded a couple, so we got at least a few months of show for you.
Yeah, so it's not like you're going to hear the first one and then the second one is never going to happen, unlike other podcasts that we've unfortunately tried
done.
To start. So yeah, we're going the distance with this one.
Yeah, which by the way, we started a podcast. I guess it would have been about a year ago, and it was called The Nerd Eye. We were just saying to ourselves, hey, it would be fun if we just had a podcast where we talked about the nerdy things we love. And we did like one episode, and then, I was like, oh, hey, we'll get guests to come on. We'll have like a D&D expert, and we'll have a LARP expert, and, all this other stuff. And then nobody called me back or anything, and which is sad because they were all my friends.
Well, LARP experts are pretty in demand. I mean,
it's also hard to get them to come in from the field.
Right. I mean, you offer them Kool-Aid and pie, Twinkies
and gold pieces.
Yeah. Experience points for the D&Ds. But it just never panned out.
Yeah.
So
we were like, come on our show, you'll level up, but that never happened. So I bought the URL, thenerdeye.net. so I still have it. So I made that my blog. I have, like the Google blog. So there's a little shameless self-promotion, thenerdeye.net, and I blog about stuff. So, all right, back to introductions now that I'm done pimping myself. Neither of us have, any credibility as a writer. Like I mentioned before, we haven't finished any, writing any books. We've done like a couple short stories, and we're working on books right now, on novel-length stuff. And I kind of got back into it when NaNoWriMo came around a couple years ago, and I think the same thing goes for you too, right?
Yeah, I heard about it, and I was like, hey, that seems easy enough. I've read a bunch of books. I'm pretty sure I could write one.
It's only 50,000 words. That's nothing.
I'd write 50,000 words within, I don't know, a year.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not even trying to write a novel. That's just me, writing internet death threats. But in this case, this is significantly more difficult, as I found.
Yes, it was. The first year I lost miserably, and the second year I won, but I had to combine a bunch of stuff I was working on all at once. I didn't actually finish one story. I was like, oh, I'm going to write this today, and then that, and then this, and then it all kind of came together, because it all took place in the same universe at least, so I could call it a book. But it was like 50,000 words of stuff that wasn't really connected and didn't go anywhere, and some stuff happened like 100 years later, and some stuff didn't really happen at all. So that's what happened. But anyway, we both, for some reason, started writing speculative fiction, like sci-fi fantasy stuff, and I don't know how that happened.
Well, it's just what we gravitate towards. I mean, it's not like I'm going to, write a book about some rocket scientist / secret agent. And it's just, it doesn't work. I'm not, my brain just doesn't work that way. There's many ways my brain doesn't work. That's one of them. But hey, you throw some goblins at me and I will make you a story.
And then I'm kind of, I've always been writing, since I was a kid. I remember there was a paper I had to do. I was homeschooled, by the way. More nerd cred right there. I was homeschooled. And I had to do like a report on the Civil War, that thing. Uh-huh. And instead of doing a report, I wrote like a story from the perspective of two different soldiers, one from the North and one from the South. And ever since then, I was like, this is fun. I like making stuff up. Let's continue to do it. And I tried to write, because when I got a little older, I got really into like the beat generation, Kerouac and Ginsberg, William S. Burroughs, which... By the way, in the new On the Road movie that's coming out, Viggo Mortensen as William S. Burroughs looks pretty epic.
Oh, okay.
Pretty epic. So I started writing stuff like that was all like, oh, this is normal life, coming of age, crap, blah, blah, blah. And then when NaNoWriMo came around, I just for some reason was like, hey, let's write a story about magic and stuff.
Right, and we kind of evolved from that to writing a story together. Yeah. Trying to collaborate. I almost said a different word there. Trying to collaborate, and it's working a little bit better.
Think, we go kind of back and forth. Where when we first started, you were doing a lot of the writing, and I was like, oh man, I got to catch up. And then you had this one, one of the characters like pretty much on lockdown, and I was like, well, I guess I got to introduce another character. So I started writing that, and now I'm have taken over the majority of the writing of it now. So I think it'll kind of even out in the end.
Yeah, I just with work and the radio show and writing, it's the writing on my ill-fated fantasy novel. It's just I need to get to that, but it will be done, and when it's done, it will be with the help of all the authors that you will have heard on this podcast in one way or form. You guys will maybe you guys will learn as much as we will. We'll learn together. We'll take this journey. We'll hold you by the hand and ease you into the world of writing. Or if you're already a writer, then you probably already have more street cred than us. So you can just listen to this and laugh at us.
Yeah, you can laugh at our ignorance. But yeah, and the whole thing about the podcast coming to fruition was, there's that Stephen King quote. I don't know if you've heard it before, but it's basically like your first million words are practice. So we're practicing right now. You know, we're gonna help us, help you to write that first million words, and then once you're done with that, you're good to go. And you magically get a publishing deal and a literary agent, and you get to the top of the New York Times and make $1 million.
Yeah, and then you will be you'll have that fat Harry Potter money. Well, not Harry Potter, like your version. If you do decide to make a wizard thing, unless you do something else, which is probably going to be boring. I can't guarantee the same.
You know, now that I think about it, maybe we'll have to do some kind of podcast on the business aspect of that writing and, you know, agents and publishing and all that.
Yeah, but for now, we should probably focus on writing a coherent story.
Yeah. For now, it's just kind of broad topics. We have the month of April is going to be focused on author Brian Thomas Schmidt, who is the author of The Worker Prince, and he has a couple other books coming out, an anthology and the sequel to The Worker Prince called The Returning. And then the month of May, did I go in the right order? April, May, yes. The month of May is going to be Michael J. Sullivan, who's known for his, it's a trilogy now, the Rhaenyra Revelations, which during our interview with him, I learned how to pronounce it properly, Rhaenyra. And so we're going to talk to him too. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a couple other guests that are scheduled, but I don't want to give too much away at the beginning. So without further ado, let's take a few minutes to talk about some of our own writing advice that we have. And, you know, when we first started recording this episode before my computer blue screened, I was mentioning that neither of us have an MFA. You know, the closest thing that I got is I have a BA in English, and I work as a security guard overnight. So I get a lot of my writing done then. And Guillermo, what is it exactly that you do?
Well, I threaten to get my MFA kicked all the time.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
But I I actually work in customer service where I do my best to try to keep my sanity while being yelled at by incoherent, angry people that I suspect may be on some sort of illicit substances.
Nice. that must give you so much fodder for writing, is like all your dealings with these people.
The only thing it really gives me is, it's destroyed my faith in humanity. So I should say that right up front. Good. I would love to watch the human race burn. I think we deserve it. No, I don't.
Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
It does help with characters because it's you see, you know, people's motivations. You see little intricate little things that kind of give away when someone's lying to you. Not really obvious things, but it does little quirks that people have fascinate me, and I work that into my my characters, nice. Which is really the I don't know, it's really the only thing I really truly actually like about my writing, but everything else needs a lot of work.
Yeah, so you at least have that character down, with the character thing down, which is good. Now I have a little bit of adviting. Wow.
Are you inviting advice?
I have a little bit of writing advice. I'm going to hit myself in the head with a hammer and just end it all. A little bit of writing advice. And I talked about this again on my blog, the nerdeye.net. Ding, ding. Pants. The importance of pants. I think nothing good ever comes out of sitting in front of a computer with no pants on. So I think it's very important to be dressed while you're working. Like if you're writing and it's like, you know, you just get little bits of writing here and there like I do at night when your family's asleep or while you're at work, it's always good to be dressed fully, you know, and act the professional. Yeah, at least act. You don't have to be one, just act. And so that's my first little writing advice-y thing. And hey, Guillermo, I think that you have a little bit of writing advice on how to overcome writer's block.
Well, yeah, but first I'd like to go into, like what you said, you're right. I mean, have you ever heard any of any famous nudist writers? No? Well then, point made.
I don't know, Thomas Pynchon maybe.
Is he a nudist?
I don't know, I just assume he is.
Okay, I'm gonna have to Google that. Wait, no, I can't Google that. Yeah, no, I almost caught that one. But, I have taken to getting a very large, very high resolution computer desktop wallpaper of a very scary looking robotic little symbol monkey that banks symbols together.
Just you saying that word makes me terrified.
Yeah, and I make sure that if I'm not writing, that I close out words so that the scary monkey, which I believe I called Snuggles, Snuggles the Doombringer.
Nice.
I can't remember but something like that. But he stares at me while I sit there with not a clue of what to write, and I figure that is probably the best way to get inspiration is being very terrified of
Nice.
it.
So
Of
so
something
when
else.
you don't have your word processor screen up in front of you, it's a scary monkey threatening to kill you unless you write more.
Well, he's not really threatening to kill me. That's the thing. He just kind of sits there and stares, which is somehow even worse because at that point you don't know what his intentions are.
It could be anything.
Sometimes I'll look away and I'll do something else, and I could swear I saw it blink, but it didn't. Well, maybe I don't know, but that's my inspiration. Also, I go to work and I realize I don't want to do this all my life. I think I want to be a
That's a good
writer.
one.
So yeah, I'm like, I just whenever I think maybe I should look for something a little bit more solid when it comes to to jobs. I remember the one call I got with the person screaming profanity at me.
Only one?
One in particular, wishing death upon my friends and my family. And I remember, okay, I don't want to do this forever. So maybe we can make this work.
Maybe. Yeah. That's good. That's a good motivator, I think. And I also have one last little piece of advice, and then we'll close it out. And next week we'll have the beginning of our real show. And I'm stealing this directly from How to Write Science Fiction and Fantasy by Orson Scott Card. And he also mentions it in his other book, Character and Development, which, by the way, books are a good way to learn how to write. But, they're not the only way. Like, you gotta, get other people to look at your work and tell you what's wrong. It's good to have a professional view, too, if you can afford it. But he talks about the mice quotient, and this really helps me out when I'm struggling with a story and I'm trying to figure out. It helps to know exactly what you're writing about, like what you're focused on, and then just keep that in mind. And the mice stands for milieu. I think I pronounced that French enough, which is the world. Idea, the idea story, the character story, and the event story. And basically the milieu story is like, and I think he just came up with milieu, because it, like calling it world would have made it the Weiss quotient instead of the mice quotient.
Oh, okay.
And milieu is basically like, somebody discovering the world and talking about all the cool stuff they find in the world. It's like Gulliver's Travels. And then there's the idea story. The story begins with raising a question and ends when the question is answered. That's most like detective stories, which we're kind of sort of doing in our book that we're writing together. It's a heist book in a fantasy world.
It's gonna be cool.
And then on to the character story, which I think Guillermo's other book that you started on is kind of a character story because it really deals with the development of at least one particular character, the main character. And basically you start your character off in one spot and end them in another. And I don't really have... Well, actually, I guess if you read Joe Abercrombie, the First Law books, those are very heavy character stories. Those are good.
Oh, okay. Yes, I'll definitely have to look at that since my storyline is just so amazingly cliche.
Well, it's okay. It's within your first million words, so it's okay. It's okay to write crap as long as you get better. What you have, I must say.
I think so. Yeah, I totally redid did a second draft of my the first chapter. It was very different. The first one was nigh unreadable garbage.
Yeah, we'll do a specific episode coming up within the next few months about editing and about making yourself better like that through self-editing, and then that'll be fun. Oh, and the E of mice is the event story, and that's basically like something is totally wrong with the world, and it's up to the characters to either put it back right or to fail miserably. And always remember, at the end of your story, readers hate if there is a draw. You should never end with nothing happening. Unless, again, you're Thomas Pynchon. Is it Thomas who wrote The Crying of Lot 49? Thomas Pynchon?
I will have to go with C.
I'll have to look that up. I'll just say Pynchon. But that was a fun experiment in fiction and literature anyway. So have your characters either win and be triumphant at the end, or have them lose miserably and everything goes horribly wrong, and your readers will, more of them will like it than hate it, I guess. But if it ends in a draw, like nothing happening, then nobody's going to like it. Get all the way to the end and nothing happens, and the readers will hate you.
I agree. Because, I mean, you one way or the other. Okay, sure, you can have the Hollywood ending, or you can have the totally non-Hollywood ending, or you can have the 1-1 soccer score tie, where everyone just leaves, hungover and miserable.
I prefer the Scooby-Doo ending myself.
Oh, with the
you reveal the bad guy at the end, and it's Old Man Smithers.
It's Old Man Weatherby.
Yeah, and it's like, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids. So I think that's our show for tonight. Like we said, we're mostly in the business of speculative fiction. I sounded very professional there, didn't I? And we'll be seeking advice mostly from authors of fantasy, sci-fi, and horror. And I'm kind of a big literary ex-fiction. Oh my gosh, I messed up again. That's like 5 times. I am a literary fiction expatriate. So I still do enjoy the occasional, regular stuff that doesn't have any hobbits or elves or superpowers in it. So, maybe we'll touch on that too. But
I used to do that. But yeah, it was
it's no fun. It's oh man, and unless you're reading it just for the craft of reading it and seeing how the prose are put together and everything, it's kind of boring. But anyway, not to squelch anybody's desire of wanting to write literary fiction. Do it if that's what you want to do. But whatever you do, just make sure you get that 1,000,000 words done. Make sure you're writing, as often as possible. There's a lot of people that say write every day or else you're not a writer. I don't really believe that. Just write as much as you can. Just always be thinking about stories, and you're going to be a writer if you just have that story burning in you that you just have to tell. So that's my little inspirational moment. Do you have any inspiration to give us before we sign off?
Let the inspiration out. Even if you're somewhere where you're like, well, I can't write this down. I'm not in front of my computer. Just write it, because you're going to forget it. Like I did. I've probably written in my head, like 5 novels, none of which have made it to paper. Ooh. So we need to just write. Just write.
I think that's an epiphany right there. I think that's how we're going to end every show.
It's like, yeah, how can I be a writer? Write.
So everybody out there, it was fun getting to know you, and I hope you tune in next week, where our guest will be Brian Thomas Schmidt, and we'll just have a general meet and greet with him. He's a lot of fun, and you can follow along on Twitter. We are at FMW Podcast on Twitter, which Guillermo tells me FMW is also the name of some kind of Japanese wrestling league or something.
Something like that.
Okay, well, we're not them.
Yeah, so if you're expecting a podcast where we talk about exploding barbed wire death matches,
don't discard that yet. We just might talk about that. And I am also on Twitter. I am at Ben_J_L, because I am Benjamin J. Love, and I also blog on thenerdeye.net. Guillermo, where can we find you anywhere?
Well, you can see pictures of me on hotbears. Wait, I know I'm on Facebook, I guess, but no one uses that. Twitter, I look at it, but I rarely post anything, just because it just seems so crowded.
Well, maybe with the show now, you'll be more inclined to post things.
Yeah, I'll post stuff. I guess I can post stuff on Nerd Eye.
We'll get you as a guest author. Yeah.
If you do choose to go there, that's where I'm going to put my rant about how much I hated the Ninja Turtles movie. And I haven't even seen it yet, so I'm already hating. I'm pre-hating. But yeah,
Guillermo Velez, everybody.
And I'm not. Who knows? I might like it. It might be the second coming of Matrix for me, but it's not bloody likely.
Okay, so what was your Twitter handle again?
I don't know. I think it's GevilS80.
That sounds good. At GevilS80. You can follow us on there, and we'll have a website eventually. I'm not going to make one yet because I want to make sure that people actually listen to us. So go on iTunes, give us reviews, whether you hate us or like us, whatever. Just so long as we know that you're listening, and subscribe. And that's all we got so far. So, as Guillermo so eloquently put it, go right.
Yeah, and then give us ideas. Let us steal your idea. I mean, don't let us steal it.
We'll steal it anyway. So
we will steal it and call it an homage.
So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week with our interview with Brian Thomas Schmidt. And again, right.